temperature control, good smoke, bad smoke, blue smoke, how to set up your Kamado Joe, fire management, that's what we're talking about. All right guys, the first principle of heat and fire management is more oxygen, more air equals high heat, less oxygen, less air equals low heat. This is going to be the fundamental principle of low and slow and hot and fast. Let me show you what I mean by that. All right guys, I'm gonna demonstrate real quick the difference between blue smoke and white smoke. And I'm gonna show you a clip real quick from my SloRoller video that I lit both the Kamado Joe Classic with the SloRoller and the Joe Jr. just with just the regular heat deflectors to kind of demonstrate, showing you what it looks like with blue smoke or close to it, to that white billowy smoke. And it's all about, again, charcoal placement in your ceramic egg, and also where you put wood chunks whenever you're trying to get low and slow. And obviously you want to make sure you put on meat after you get a clean burn and get through that blue smoke, then put your meat on for the most desired outcome. Well, hey guys, I'm Scott from Bartlow's Barbecue, and if you like what you see today, man, like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any videos on the channel every single week. Well, as we're setting up the Kamado Joe, first thing I want you to notice is that we have a charcoal ash basket. I'll have a link in the description below, but this is going to help us set up our charcoal properly. And then also I have a ash basket here, same thing from the same company, ash basket, and that makes it just a lot easier to control and clean out your ash and also set up your temperature properly. You also want to notice, you want to make sure you've cleaned out all the holes in your ceramic, and because that's going to be really critical to good airflow. And so we want to make sure that everything is clean and cleared as we set charcoal in here, and then also making sure there's no ash that is going to distort or clog our good airflow. Alright guys, let's talk about wood placement, wood chunks, and then charcoal placement. This is going to help on multiple fronts understanding this. Essentially, I like to put the wood chunks in the charcoal basket first, or even if you don't have a charcoal basket and you've got the grate at the bottom, I would lay the wood chunks down first, or your wood log down first, and then we would cover the wood chunks with charcoal. And I think that helps address helping you achieve that blue thin smoke versus white smoke. And then also another thing is you want to make sure when it comes to white smoke versus blue thin smoke is that you want to allow the charcoal and the wood to activate and smolder and burn purely before you put the meat on. And so once you kind of get through that cycle, that's when you put your food on. But I think it's really important to put wood chunks down first and then cover the charcoal over that, and let's do that now. And one thing to notice, I think is really important, is to make sure you put the big charcoal pieces at the bottom and then fill up the small pieces. That allows for better airflow, so there's more gaps in between the charcoal once you light it. And then again, because you're using a charcoal basket, you already have better airflow because there's gaps between the fire wall and the charcoal basket. And there's little gaps at the bottom. Now, some people's principle is they like to fill up the charcoal basket all the way to the top, no matter if you're doing low or slow or hot and fast. I see value in that. At the same time, I think it's really important. Typically, I've been trained that less is more, no matter if you're doing hot, hot and fast or low and slow, because if you have the right placement and the right size of charcoal, these ceramic eggs are so efficient, they will burn really hot when you need it to, and then really long when you need it to. So also the right type of charcoal. So that's kind of just two things you could do. You could fill up the charcoal basket. I think you would be fine because of the airflow on the outer side of the wall here. But I do like to do a little less typically in my cooks, I have found both methods, or my method of doing less charcoal for the most part, where there's at least 2 to 3 bar tiers of the charcoal basket still visible all the way around, and then obviously there's some pockets. I probably could fill in a little bit more here, but just from demonstration purposes, wanted to show you how I usually get this going, and then and you can fill it up accordingly. If you're going a long, long smoke, you could fill this up a little bit more and you'd be fine. But that's just a general principle when it comes to setting up your charcoal properly. Well, now that we got the charcoal placed set, we use some fire starters like this. I've placed one here underneath the coals, one here. Use little JJ George fire starter to get that going. Again, you open up your vents. For a few minutes, I keep the dome open just to kind of get maximum airflow. Then I will shut the dome once I see it going, and then this is kind of the process of how we get it started. Well, as we're getting the temperature up to speed, you can install the X ring and rack right here, and what you can do is install your heat deflectors if you have that version, and that allows the heat to heat up the heat deflectors at the same pace your charcoal is being lit. Also, it burns off any extra crud on the back end of your heat deflectors, which is really great. You got plenty of airflow around, and then when you're done, you just close the heat deflectors like that whenever you think you've got the temperature in the dome that you need. This is a tip that Smoking Dad Barbecue, which is James, he's got a great channel. He's one of my friends, and I've done this method, and I've also done the method where you just install the heat deflectors in the regular position whenever it's time. And I've done it both ways and had good success, but man, I love sharing tips that I've learned along the way, either that I've stumbled upon through my own learning or from others. And James has got a phenomenal channel. So he is a Kamado Joe guru. So again, this is another method of getting your grill up to temperature the way that you need it, using the heat deflectors. I'm going to also show you it's essentially the same way for the SloRoller accessory, and no matter what model of Kamado Joe you have, you're doing the same setup. Alright friends, now that we've got the fire fully lit at the temperature that we are looking for, we can install the top grid of the SloRoller, and we can put that on there, close the dome for low and slow. Well, let's talk hot and fast real quick when it comes to your temperature gauge. If you're wanting to get this thing up roaring after you've lit your charcoal, you want to make sure that this top vent is all the way open. This is one I like to do to get it as fast as possible, and again, your bottom vent is completely open. You've got a clean burn going, everything's lit. Leave this open for 10 to 15 minutes. You want to make sure you're keeping up with it and watching the temperature, because you don't want it to go roaring too high, 700 to 900 if you don't need that unless you're cooking pizza. But typically 500 to 550 is good for that steak searing temperature. So you just want to keep an eye on that. But that's just one thing I do, is I open it up here all the way open at the bottom vent. And again, this is like an exhaust. It's an intake here, an exhaust up here, and so it's just circulating the oxygen and air, especially as long as you've got your charcoal set up properly. It's going to feed that charcoal to get you the temperature you need for that hot and fast. Same thing for low and slow. We want to close the top control tower. We want to get to that 1 to 2 notch up here where it's kind of cracked open, and then 1 to 2 fingers on the bottom vent, and that will typically get you in that 225 to 250, 275 range, which are good kind of markers for low and slow depending on what you want to do. I've been really enjoying that 250 to 275 range, cooking still in the low and slow platform, but also I feel like it's just making the cooks even better. So again, that is just real quick tips on low and slow, making sure your temperature gauge are on the right settings. The biggest mistake I see people do is checking their ceramic egg too much and messing with their settings too often during a cook. And cook to cook, you don't know what the variable was, or what went successful to what went wrong, and to be able to make adjustments. So my encouragement is just to hone in on kind of a consistent method for yourself, so you know what was successful and what wasn't, and why. Understanding why is one of the most important things to cooking barbecue. If you know why something was successful, you can repeat it. If you don't, you're kind of at a loss. Well, to demonstrate on how to do low and slow and hot and fast, I want to reverse sear a steak and set up the Kamado Joe to do low and slow, and then we're gonna take off the divide and conquer and then raise the temperature on the Kamado, and we're gonna provide just an amazing sear on the steak, just to show you how we actually do it. Now, one thing that's really important is setting up your temperature like with a digital thermometer. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure not only the temperature of the dome, but also the temperature of at the grate level, and then the meat itself. When I open this up to set up the temperature gauge for the grate level, I lost a lot of heat, and so now I'm having to open up the top bin all the way up to get this dome temperature back up to 200. But notice at the grate level, it's already at 240, where here we're pretty much at 200 at the dome level, because I've been opening up constantly to get it this set up properly. I'm about to put the steak on. Well, now that we've got that pretty much that clear smoke, blue smoke we're looking for, you can notice the steaks are at 82 degrees internal temp, grate level 263, and we're like at 260, almost 270 from the dome. So it's cool that we're not too far off from the dome temperature to the grate level. And once we hit 115 to 120 internal temp, then we are gonna take the divide and conquer system out, and we will then set up the charcoal for hot and fast searing. We've already flipped these. These are at 130, 135 from that pull 'em, and that is how you bring up your grill from low and slow to hot and fast. All right, so what do you do if you've overshot your temperature? It's a common question. Well, what you simply do is take your control tower and open it up slightly, like barely open, and just close your bottom vent completely. That'll help suffocate the oxygen. It will allow it to cool down quicker, and then after maybe 3 or 4 minutes, all you need to do after you've done that, and I've already done this, you just kind of open up the ceramic and burp it to allow some oxygen and air and heat to escape, and then shut it, and that will begin to lower the temperature if you accidentally overshoot it. The best way to learn temp control on your Kamado or ceramic egg is just experiment. Try to experiment with that charcoal placement, your wood placement, and then just start cooking low and slow on really cheap items like steak, and then move to a hot and fast, brisket or a pork butt, which is very forgiving. You could cook that at 275, 250, 275, a little faster, and it just renders out really great. Just experiment low and slow, hot and fast, and you begin to learn the temp control and how to manage your ceramic egg. Well, hey guys, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful to set up your Kamado Joe and understand temperature control, fire management. If you like the video, like it, subscribe, turn on the notification button, check out all the other videos on the channel for barbecue recipes, reviews, and much more. From my backyard to yours, less hate, more love, good barbecue.